Moderator Ayisha Mendez, Community Manager, ForbesBLK.
For the crowd here, can you all raise a hand if you or someone you know has ever experienced mental health? Thank you. I think that that's something that's really relatable, and so I'm so excited to have our amazing speakers here today, experts in their own right, to just really share a lot of really great tidbits and resources with you all. So, 1 in 3 Black Americans experiencing mental health don't seek mental health. Oh, sorry, only 1 in 3 Black Americans experiencing mental health actually seek professional help. In a world that often demands more than it gives, rest, wellness, and self-care are radical acts. Many struggle to overcome the stigma, finding safe spaces, and accessible care. Dr. Judith, I'd love to start with you. 36% of Gen Z and millennials are open or already using AI for mental health care. Let's talk about AI as the problem and the solution.
It's interesting because earlier this week, I spent a lot of time at Harvard and then with a Fortune 100 tech company shortly right after it, and they were talking about this very thing. And one of the interesting new statistics that came out was that when you asked youth if they were likely to seek out mental health care from a healthcare professional, a mental health expert, 48% of them said that that would be their last resort. So this is a reality. We can't run from it anymore. And recent data shows that like 70% of youth have used AI, and about like 1 in 3 of them have used AI for emotional support. The problem with this is, I'll give you an example of a patient I saw the other day. I saw a patient the other day, I'll disguise the case, but they came in saying that they think that they were depressed because they did a search for I feel off. And they thought they were depressed, and they read, the AI prompted them that, you know, depression can be caused by sleep issues. So then they ended up taking a bunch of over-the-counter medicine. And the reason that they were actually feeling off was because the medication was causing all of these like mind fog and cognitive issues. But the person kept on taking more because AI was saying, oh, it's maybe take more, you know? So it can be very dangerous, but the reality is that that's where they're getting their information. So what do we have to do? We have to stop pretending it's not happening. And I think that it's the responsibility of the platforms to partner with people like myself and the people on this panel to work together to prevent things like this. Because if we pretend that, you know, they're not doing it, we're just gonna go down the rabbit hole, and we're not gonna have a solution. We have to acknowledge that this is happening, and two things can be true. They're using it, but we have to make it better.
I think that's a great point. I would love to kind of dive into that a little bit more. You know, why do you think youths are more inclined to go to AI? Of course, it's free, it's accessible, and it's non-judgmental, but is there any other factors you think go into that decision?
Yes, many of them, you know, have gone through a period of social isolation, but also it's easy, you know, and like when I do a lot of content online about generations, and older generations are more likely to pick up a phone and call someone. Younger generations are more likely to use a device. And some recent data out of the suicide hotline showed that the number of people reporting suicide went up when the text feature came about, right? But someone older would never, a lot of my patients would never text to get help for suicide, but the younger generation, that's their language. So again, we can't pretend that this is not how they speak. We can't be judgmental. This is how their brains are. It's a different time. And I think that it's easy, it's more accessible, they feel less judgment, they feel more privacy, believe it or not. And you know, it's just the way of the times. This is just typical of their generation.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Derek, I would love to turn it over to you. Mental health in the Black community, especially for men, has been historically under-prioritized. How can we either adapt our language so that it becomes more accessible or more open to older generations to be more open to talking about that?
Well, I think we already talk about it. I think there's no solutions to the talk. I think we all kind of just keep going back and forth, but we never, when we leave, do we have a solution? do have a format. You know, I was abandoned at 12 by both parents and single dad at 15, but I never smoked, never drank, never sold drugs, but it was because I talked to someone who gave me a solution of the outcome. And I think we've missed that part. We talk a lot, but what is our outcome? If you looked at everything in the world, we talk a lot, but we need solutions. And that's what I try to give them. You put yourself in a position where we role play when we talk. What would happen if you did this? Let's show me what that looks like. This is what's gonna happen. If you don't actually have a conversation, your mental wellness, which I call mental wellness, is like a diet. If you don't put a full plan for a diet, you ain't gonna work. You know, everything has to have a solution in our generation now, and I think we've been talking so much that we try to implement plans in that. And I just think if you see that, a lot of kids follow what they see. Social media is one thing, and then I teach them how to speak in every day. I say, when you look in the mirror, would you speak to yourself?
So the daily mirror affirmations.
Every single day, I said, how are you getting better? So when you wake up, you either get better or you get worse. It's like in sports. Did I get better at basketball? Do I get worse? Somebody's catching me one day unless I continuously build upon who I am as a person. So we try to just implement solutions for everybody, and that's what we do. And I've just been fortunate enough to work with a lot of good people who, like the panel, who can give us those solutions.
No, absolutely. I'm also curious, do any of you guys have an affirmation that you say to yourself in the morning?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, lady, sorry.
Oh, any of us to start?
Yeah, any of you guys, yeah.
One that I like is embrace the energy of ease. I think so much of how we operate is about moving at an accelerated pace, moving quickly, responding to things rather than like preparing for them. And so that's one, and then prepare for the blessing is my other one. And so it's just like about readiness and starting the day, but like a little bit more paced.
I'm someone who's studied, I published the first peer-reviewed study in the world on high-functioning depression. High-functioning depression is when you have symptoms of depression, but you're pathologically productive. So rather than shutting down, you overwork because you're outrunning your pain versus processing it. So my mantra every day is, I am a human being, not a human doing.
Oh, I love that. And I love what you said, Derek, as well, just like talking about whether you call it mental health or you're calling it mental wellness, by doing some of those daily affirmations or going to the gym. I think it doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you're doing the work and seeking the support you need.
Absolutely.
Latham, I'd love to turn it over to you. I believe there's so much cultural history of doulas that is still prevalent today. 50% of doulas identify as Black or African American, and a common misconception is the amount of emotional support that goes into doing the job. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so doulas for everyone in the room are non-clinical care providers that provide emotional support, physical support, education, advocacy tools. If you have a partner present, they provide support to that partner as well. And they're like kind of having like a cheerleader for your birth or like a producer for your birth. Like if you're having a wedding, you would hire a producer for that. It's like almost the same type of concept. This is a person who also fills the gap that we have where we don't have our same villages that we used to keep back in the day. And so it's a person who creates kind of that cultural glue for a family to connect and for also a person to feel really supported along the perinatal continuum. These are also people who come from our community who are also really tired and overworked, and typically are Black women who take on a lot, right? And so they're doing often social work and a lot of, sort of administrative, work that they shouldn't be doing when they should be providing care. And we see that across communities of folks who are doing high-touch services, like our frontline workers, right? Like our nurses and caregivers, our elder caregivers and doulas. Like these are people who are like really laying on hands, right? And so these people are often overworked, also borderline depressed many times too, and dealing with anxiety. And a lot of that anxiety, we did a study on birth worker burnout, and it looked at racialized and feminized care work and the impact of this work on these communities and burnout and also retention in the workforce. And what we found is that a lot of the administrative burden creates barriers for people to obviously get paid, which means that they also have stress. Economic stress also leads to depression, symptomology too. So these are things that like we try to manage by also ensuring that people have retention spaces for emotional support. And so they have spaces where they can get mental health services, where they can see care providers, but also be in community. Because I think what's really important to remember for care workers, but also for parents and families, in the same way that I think about, that most people think about caring for families, we would never like leave a baby alone, you know, unattended, right? And so when we think about, you know, our new mothers, we never leave them alone unattended. They're swaddled in support. People are feeding them, looking after them. And our caregivers in a network, we kind of have to do that for each other because no one does that for caregivers. And so, so it's about designing like safety nets of support and creating spaces where we can actually fill up our cup so we can do the work. Otherwise, if you're burnt out, you don't continue, right? And we need this time for those of us who are in here who know that we're in a maternal health crisis, we're in a mental health crisis in this country. Like the health continuum is at a tipping point where we have to, as community members, decide that we're gonna be the ones with solutions to actually fill the gaps that our federal government, you know, is not filling, and that we can't really wait for policy and legislation to show up for. So it's incumbent upon us to think about how can we be agile and design solutions to support community.
I love it. Thank you so much. I would actually love for Derek and if you would both like to kind of speak to what are some tips do you have? I love what you mentioned, Latham, about being able to, as a community, come up with solutions that might not be available. What are some solutions that you might have, whether it's talking to the kids in your community or just even in your work? What are just some tips that you can share with the audience?
My wife and I, Jamie Anderson, we created an Acts of Kindness program, and imagine if the only way you got paid if you were nice. A whole lot of broke people, wouldn't it? And for our point is, how do we change the character of our community? And that's the difference. If you're not nice, I'm not just gonna give you some money or some free stuff. Like, you gotta prove to me that you're a better person. Prove to me, show me what you've done, whether it's open the door for someone. You ever open the door and they don't open it, and they'll say thank you, you want to snatch them back in? It's like, man, just say thank you. But if they're not taught that habit, how can they learn it? We're upset with people who don't understand social cues, common courtesy. Doesn't cost a dime to be kind. And I think my wife and I have tried to implement that in our foundation, and we don't do it randomly, we do it every day. So now our children every single day is yes, ma'am, yes, sir, how can I help you? When I walk out, I want to speak to people. I spoke to everyone in the back room. That's a habit. We don't teach habits in that way. How do they learn social media? They get on it all the time. It's a habit. So for our practices, we just make sure if you want some help from us, be nice. That's it. And I think those are healthy cues for our children to teach it. So when our kids get the report, like, your kids are different. They speak, they're nice. No, that's normal. You know what I mean? Like, we've not normalized being nice, and the simplicity of it is not at home as much, and it's not in the community, and we know it's not on social media. So for us as the panel, we're trying to, like you said, implement how do you get that person to relax? And that's everyone, not just women, that's every one of us. Men, women, young people, we need a relaxing, but if your neighbors, you can't walk out your house and speak to your neighbors and your children, that's an anger issue we built in ourselves. So just trying to teach them a different way of getting to their attention. Meet them where they're at. Don't try to force it. Meet them where they're at, and then you can convert and change how they think mentally.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think for a lot of people, you don't know what the type of day someone's having as well. And sometimes a simple act of kindness or a smile can really change the trajectory of someone's outlook on.
Yeah, we make a bet sometimes on how many people we can make smile a day. So I always try to say, I'm gonna make more people speak to me today. Some people don't, but you know how that goes. But try to make as many people say hello and just see the response. You'd be like, that was nice of you. But when you walk past people, and what do the kids do? Walk right past you on their phone. So we try to teach our kids, and now they're just speaking to everybody. Like, don't speak to them too much. Like, you shaking their hand like they don't know you, but
unless you're here, you can do that as much as you like.
Be overboard with kindness.
Well, in my work, I study the science of happiness, and I often say, what is the science of your happiness? There's only one you. There will only ever be one you. The future of the universe and the history of the universe. So it's really up to you to take the time to understand where you're losing your joy, so that you know where to add back your joy. As a therapist, people come to me, they're like, oh, I just want to be happy, Dr. Judith, I just want to be happy. I'll ask them, well, what is happiness to you, right? And they'll say, oh, it's when I get, the dream job, or I finally have a family, I finally have a soulmate. It's always something on the outside, this external thing that they're waiting to happen. But the science shows us that when we hold our breath for this thing to happen, we're still not happy when we get it. So I do a lot of work educating people about the difference between happiness and joy. Joy is different. We are all built with the DNA for joy. Look at your hand and say to yourself every day, it is my birthright as a human being, and I want to learn how to reclaim it. Joy is internal. It's something that's put into our DNA so that we can survive. Like, as a people, we've survived so much because of internal joy. And so what does that mean? When we measure the joy in our research, we'll ask people like, okay, when you ate your food, was it yummy? Did you savor it? When you took a nap, did you feel refreshed? When you were lonely and you reached out to a friend, did you feel connected, right? Those are all the points we're adding up. But you and I, we leave our points of joy on the table every day because we're chasing this idea of happy. So I developed a system called the 5 V's to help people reclaim their joy. So the first V is validation. Acknowledge your emotions. If you don't acknowledge how you're feeling, it is very confusing and you become stressed. And stressed out brains cannot access joy. So it's like turning the light on something like, oh, that's how I feel. You feel better. So learn how to validate and acknowledge and accept your feelings without judgment. The second V is venting. Express your emotions. In my lab, I have people come in and they'll take turns with the red balloon and they try to push it under a tank of water. And 100% of the time, that balloon pops up, right? If you don't slowly let the air out of that balloon every day, express your emotions, it'll pop up in your health, it'll pop up at work, it'll pop up with your family, right? So learn how to express emotions. It could be talking about it, it could be journaling, it could be praying. My dad's a pastor, he will never go to therapy, but the man can pray. He's a prayer warrior. But learn how to express in a way that feels authentic to you. The third V is values. That's what you were talking about, right? Tapping into things that give you meaning and purpose, like kindness, like your faith, things that make you feel as if life is worth living. Try to tap into that every day. Think things that are priceless, not things with a price tag, because we're always chasing things that are monetary, but they don't last. And the fourth is vitals. How do you take care of your body and brain? You spend a lot of time on this. Like, how do you nurture your body? Because you only get one. So eat foods that are nutritious for your brain. There are brain foods that you can eat that actually are proven to help you feel better, to sleep better. Learn what those are. Get the movements in, Have a healthy relationship with technology. And the fifth V is vision. Make sure you're planning joy in the future so you don't get stuck in the past, and celebrate your wins. So after you leave here today, thank yourself and say, I didn't have to be in this talk. I could have left and gone on to see something else. But I was curious about the science of my happiness. So celebrate those wins because it keeps you moving forward instead of getting stuck in the past. And this works for children and adults. It's something I teach because many times you're waiting on a wait list for a therapist, but you can do these things because why? Joy is built into your DNA. You just have to learn how to reclaim it. Tap into one of the 5 V's every day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Judith. That was beautiful, and I think those are really great tips to take with you guys. I want to add one extra level to what we've been talking about, which is, while it's so important for us to be showing up for others, we can't forget to pour back into ourselves. I think you gave really great examples of how we can do that. But I think another really great way is through the daily practice of self-care. And so I know that through a lot of us, it's really hard sometimes to find that work-life balance. So what is something that you do every day, whether it is the mirror affirmations, to help you, help make you feel ready and help yourself get ready for the day?
Thank you for that. I would first like to say that we shouldn't be striving for balance. I think this idea that your life is going to be like this at any point is not real, but also when it's like this, you're dead, right? So your life is like this, it's moving, and one thing I like to think about is, I used to love the circus growing up. I don't know if they exist anymore, but when we were growing up, we would watch the tightrope walkers, and what they would do is they would walk across this thin rope, and they would be like tens of feet up in the sky. And how they would get across is they would hold a pole, and it's a tension pole that allows them to get across because it actually throws them off balance, right, to walk all the way across. And so what life actually provides us is opportunities to respond to chaos, to respond to with resilience, with tools that we've been using all along. So when you're using your mindfulness tools, when you're using prayer, meditation, affirmation, when you're going outside, gardening, getting connected to the land, when you're with people who you've known for generations, like one of the big pieces is like intergenerational gathering, like we always do, being in community. Like these are things that help you in-source the opportunities to respond to what's happening in your life. And so when something comes your way, you have to respond to that. So it's not like every day everything's smooth. And so what I like to do is, check in on a moment-to-moment basis and not make self-care a thing where we're trying to bubble bath our problems away, but actually think about, like, what do I need now? Right now my body's asking me to feed itself. I'm gonna go eat, right? I need some sunlight, I wanna go outside. Or my brain is kind of foggy, maybe go take a walk around the block. Like, really respond in that way so you learn to anticipate the needs of your body and be a really good and obedient, person to like your body's needs. And then be responsive, right, to what's happening in your environment. And so today might call you in to like support a family member who's in the hospital. So that means that things that are on your desk have to, be put to the side. But it means also that we have a response to that, right? And we develop this internal capacity to have that response not throw us off into chaos, right? That we can ground ourselves and like respond to it using tools, right? And so self-care to me is about really accessing those tools, but anticipating my needs in advance and like planning as much as possible so that when things that, throw us off balance, you can respond to and not really end up like, just feeling out of sorts, right? Yeah. And I think the main thing that we should be thinking about when we're caring for ourselves is really designing a life that you don't have to escape, right? Like thinking about how you're planning, how you're moving through life. It shouldn't be like, I have to get through this so I have to get to my vacation. I have to get through this so I can get home and watch TV. I have to get to this so I can watch Love Island. It should really be, right, that we're pacing ourselves and not outpacing so that we get like, stress hormones like flooding our bloodstream constantly, but that we actually downregulate and we have practices to help ourselves do that. And most of us have these things that we do already and we don't realize that we're already tending to ourselves. But sometimes we can like tweak every now and again to make it a little bit better.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Latham, Judy, and Derek for being here. I hope the tips that you guys received were really helpful, and I hope this is something that you can take away from as we continue out through the rest of the summit. So thank you.
Thank you.